Mo Salah is quite widely regarded as one of the best Premier League players that we've ever seen. But is he on a decline? Or is he just better than ever? Let's find out. Right, guys, welcome back. This is the Above Average FPL podcast. My name is Adam, and as always, I'm joined by Baker. How you doing, mate?
I'm good.
Good,
Very
mate.
good, mate. We've got a game. We've got things to talk about.
Big questions.
Just one person to talk about today. This is new for us.
This is new. So we're going to be doing a video just about Mo Salah. We're going to have a look at, all the statistics around last season, all his seasons with us in the Premier League. And, some things that are telling us, like, is he on a decline? Is he on his way down? But actually, does the last 10 weeks of last season tell us that he's actually better than ever? So we'll go through all those stats. Hopefully we can come up with some kind of conclusion. And we'll see how that pans out. Where do we want to start?
It's good for us, this. I think we should caveat early on is that, because I think there's a lot of people that watch us that probably think we don't like Liverpool that much. And it's partially true. We both didn't pick Mo Salah as much as the average elite manager last season. So he was like an Achilles heel for us. And it was good to reflect and think to ourselves, you can look at it and go, were we right? Or can you look, were we wrong? And try and justify it. So we wanted to do a bit of a deep dive, but also it's a big decision for us from an FPL perspective, isn't it? Of do you have him, do you not? And I think seems like the general consensus right now is not. So hopefully we can either cement that decision or create some headaches.
So let's start at the beginning. Is he on a decline? So for people listening, we've got a table up looking at his last 6 seasons. So all the seasons he was at Liverpool. And, we're looking at his starts. Well, just for context, we're looking at starts and minutes. Obviously, you've got his goals, assists, XG, non-penalty XG, and XA.
That first season, coming in, 32 goals, absolutely smashed it up. I mean, he's not touched those heights since, but to consistently achieve around 20 XG, to consistently be turning in more than a goal every other game. And certainly, in terms of returns, 31 returns still last season in 37 games. The bit that massively stands out last season, 3,290 minutes. How many minutes do we work out in total you can do?
3,420.
He missed 130 minutes all season. They were in Champions League. And he doesn't miss those games either.
No.
He is just an absolute minutes machine. First chink in the armor, though, is the first time that he's ever performed under his XG. So, he's normally there or thereabouts.
Yeah, 19 goals, 21.7 XG last season. He did miss. Did he miss a penalty? He didn't have any penalties last season. I don't know whether that's maybe.
He did miss 2, though, didn't he?
He missed 2 last year.
Yeah.
Because he missed 1 the season before for sure. But he definitely had less penalties last year than he's had in seasons gone by. And that's a combination of the way Liverpool have been playing, as well as different rule changes, as well as him staying on his feet, maybe. Can't get away with those cheeky little ones anymore.
No, I mean, his non-penalty XG, that's the most non-penalty XG he's had since his first season.
Yeah.
He obviously has definitely in the last 2 seasons been really consistent in terms of his assists. And I think when we have a look at sort of where he's playing, I think that plays into a bit more positional discipline than we've seen. But I do question whether he was a little tired last season, whether tiredness might play into the fact of how much, or how well he performs in those really key moments. Starting 37 out of 38 games last season, plus starting a load of cup games as well, playing every 3 days forever and ever. This season in the Europa, I do wonder if he gets more of a rest during some of those midweeks, and therefore, because they've got more attacking options. Szoboszlai should now come in, and he can play right wing as well. Jota can play right wing. They've got players that can do that. I do wonder whether a refreshed Mo that only necessarily, plays more like 34 starts like he played in 2017, 18, or even just still plays 37 games, but just doesn't play all the other ones that sit around it, maybe that might create an uptick. Because I mean, he's super fit. I mean, I just saw him tweet this morning about him sort of half naked at the beach and just looks ripped.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't look like a decline in physical performance, but that is something that we should look out for early season. Is how sharp is he?
I think it's worth. I mean, I think going back 6 years, I think it's worth leaving that one as an outlier. It was just an exceptional season. It was the season that they brought in Van Dijk as well. Liverpool were a brand new outfit. He had this, failure at Chelsea tag all over him as well, and he just came in and just basically smashed shit up just for the hell of it. And Robbo came in that season as well. That Liverpool team started to take shape in that year. But yeah, I mean, I think one thing. Maybe it's not a consideration right now because we're talking about the start of the season, but my mind just wants me to talk about that season where everyone went, "Oh, he's not been the same since AFCON." Da da da. And we've got the African Cup of Nations this year as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
So just reminding myself of what happened then. So what happened in that season is he started like absolute lightning. And
it was like 10, 11 points a game, wasn't it, for the first 10 weeks?
Yes. Yeah, it was about 105, 106 points in the first 10 games. Now, post-AFCON, his underlying data didn't drop off too much, but his performance versus his underlying did considerably. Apart from one fucking week. But yeah.
Against us. Yeah. Motivation then, no Europe to worry about. Not, primetime Europe, so he's not going to be... He's going to get more rest probably between games in the Premier League than he got there. Premier League, they obviously desperately want to get back into the top four this season, so I expect him to play every Premier League game. And the fact that he knows if he wants his golden boot back, I mean, golden boot's now very, very difficult for him because of Haaland. It's going to be even more difficult in a season when he's got AFCON, but maybe extra motivation to start fast. Ooh.
Yeah. So let's look at, so is he on a decline? Maybe. Let's have a look at how he's transitioned positionally over the last 6 years. And the touch maps are very interesting here because it kind of tells us what we were seeing on the pitch. I mean, that sounds like me telling you to suck eggs. It sounds pretty obvious, but we were seeing it on the pitch that we know in 2017, 18, 19, 20, he was very much that front man as Liverpool just continually battered people with this massive high press. He was always up there. And on top of that, you can see from the touch maps that he was on set pieces as well. So, there's so many avenues to points back then. Now, as you see from the bottom ones, like 2020, 2021, still quite heavy, but you can see it start to shift towards the left-hand side or his right-hand side.
Yeah.
As we get later and later. And you can also see him having to help out more at the back. And, we know about Trent's frailties last season, in particular in the early part of last season. You can almost see Trent, you can almost see Salah here, doing a lot of tracking back, coming back to collect the ball in places where, you don't want him to be on the ball. And that's not going to be conducive to FPL points. It's not going to be conducive to goals, assists, and all that stuff that you want from Salah, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I said yesterday that the early season heat maps look a bit like the United States of America in terms of the way they go the whole way across. He turns up on the left wing, and then by this season, it's more like Argentina, and it's a much thinner, longer line of what he does. I think the part of that's Henderson as well. As Henderson did a lot of help on that right side, and then as it becomes an Elliott, as it becomes a Szoboszlai this season, kind of expected it to continue. So I think there's something in our brain where we see that if Salah is, we call it isolated on the right, if he's out wide, but I think it's just more his position now. So I think that from our perspective, we should keep in our brain that that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just what it is. We never say, "Oh, Saka's isolated on the right, I better not pick him." That's just where he plays. But I think there is something in our mind of just evolving in our head of how does he play? Well, he's now the right winger. He's not all the attack. You can even see in the places that for quite a number of seasons, you can see he took the kickoffs, hence he has a touch map piece in the kickoff, and now he doesn't because he's more I'm going to do the run down the right channel the second the kickoff goes off. So he definitely has evolved into a more maybe limited player in terms of where he is. But I think that also comes with age, is that he can't just keep running everywhere all over the pitch. So, and he is, from the previous one we were shown, despite all of his change of positions, XG around 20 every season.
Yeah.
Doesn't impact that.
Yeah. And then in terms of this season just gone, we quite clearly saw a difference between game weeks 1 to 29 and then the last 8-9 game weeks of the season, where the left-hand side, very busy. I mean, I think a small caveat is that there will be a slightly heavier map on the left-hand side because there's more data, but it still tells the right story, right? It still tells you that, he's very busy on that right-hand side, and now in the latter part, he's really looking to drive into that, corner of the box where we know Salah likes. Salah of old would dribble in and just turn 3 or 4 players, open his body and put it across the keeper, right? That's kind of what we're looking at now.
You've definitely seen, so on the left, game weeks 129, you can see he covers that right half space as well as covering the right wing. Whereas in game weeks 30, 38, what you've seen is Trent's pushed himself further forward. And therefore he doesn't need to spend any of that time infield from, say, halfway line to the penalty box. So he either stays out wide, but what you'll notice is he spends very little time near that right corner flag. So he's a right midfielder that transitions into a right forward as he moves forward. He actually never gets to the right wing. He goes right mid into the right forward. So he's always looking to come in, get on that left foot. Actually, he's only got one job now, which
I think it's a lot better as well. Yeah, as you say as well, you mentioned the Trent thing coming in. Like Trent's ability to pass the ball is much higher than, say like a Henderson. In the past, like Henderson's great at the press, he's great at driving the whole team, etc. And he did a lot of great stuff for Liverpool, admittedly, but he's not going to find that key pass that that he's not going to unlock the defense. He's not going to break the line with a pass the way that Trent will find it. And then Trent has the ability to spray it left, right, whatever. But Trent's ability to find tight spaces and find that break line ball, and Szoboszlai can do the same, right? Again.
Yeah, even more so. Yeah, having 2 weapons that can put him through. If they stay in this shape, that's what we need to look for. But this is what I'm looking for pre-season: him being really wide off the ball, really wide at the start of an attack, coming in off it. That's the key signs, because if we see that, then we're looking at how it works. Because this is, for us, looking at this is, and we're going to go on in a minute, talk about, what was the difference in performance from that start of the season to the end of the season, is which one is it that we want? And we might as well move to it now.
Let's pivot there then. Yeah, that's a good place to move. So, we're looking now asking the question, is he actually better than ever? And I think, we'll caveat this with the bottom table does, have a sample size issue in that sense. But
10 games though.
10 games,
I know it's not a lot.
Yeah, it's 2.5 months.
Not nothing.
And 2.5 months is enough for 90% of people to make a judgment, right? I think most people will make a judgment over 10 weeks. Some people say, "Oh, don't do last 4." That's fine, but 10 weeks is a decent amount.
Yeah. 10 games it is. It's technically not, from a game weeks. It's not 10 game weeks, but there was a double in there, so it technically works out as 10 matches he started, because obviously he starts everything. But we've said that opening season, it took him 120 minutes per XG that he to play. So, like, not even 1.5 games to achieve 1 XG. What we can see is every single season, like, he's averaging less than 2 minutes per touch in the final third. That is like averaging 45 to 50 touches in the final third. He had more final third touches than anybody else in Europe last season. He is still an unbelievable every season elite attacker. That's how he ends up with 20 XG. We're going to moan about the fact that this last season was his worst season for attempts on goal. And he was a dreadful 26 minutes for every attempt. Like, that's not, that means you're still getting at least 3 shots. Like, if you take him on, you're going to have at least 3 shots that you're going to be facing into against it. But last season was 160 minutes per XG. It's definitely that definitely looks like it's not so good. And actually, when you break it down, one game it's 129. That was 184 minutes. So it took him more than 2 games to get to 1 XG. That's unusual. Like, that is suddenly like you're worried about him. Over 2 minutes per final third touch, 2.1 minutes. 134 minutes per expected goal involvement. 29 minutes.
They're categorically they're categorically worse than anything we've ever seen.
Anything we've ever seen in that game week 1 to 29.
But then at the same time, Liverpool's start to the season last year was terrible. Like, the whole team was bad.
And maybe that is it. Maybe this is the thing. If Liverpool are good, he's good. If Liverpool are bad, he's bad. And I think from an FPL perspective, I'm seeing others that we're saying, well, what I'll do is I'll go Hakpo, or I'll go Szoboszlai, I'll go Darwin instead of Mo, and do all those bits. But intrinsically, if Liverpool do well, Salah does well. And if they do, and we're going to show some of the share of ownership in terms of how he goes, but it's almost impossible for Salah to do badly if Liverpool do well, because he's so much the talisman for them. In that last 10 games, 118 minutes per XG for a guy who's classified as a midfielder is insane.
Yeah. 94
minutes per expected goal involvement, 1.4 minutes per final third touch.
Yeah.
1.4 minutes. An attempt on goal every 20 minutes. So that means if it continues in this kind of form in terms of where he's at, he's going to get at least 4 shots on goal. For a team, they average 2.5 XG per game in those game weeks, Liverpool.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just wanted to compare, like, going up to like game week 28, 29 last year versus the season before. And I look at like game week 29, 28, the data from Understat, they had 55 non-penalty XG coming up to like game week 28. And the season before, they were at 68.
Wow.
I mean,
Liverpool.
Don't get me wrong. That season was far and above any season they had, but it's still a ridiculous. It was still a ridiculous. They were still 50. They were 58 the season before. 58 in the season where he absolutely smashed it.
Yeah, there's a reason why they had to do what they did, and
they had to change things.
They had to change things. He had to change his system, but boy, did it work.
Yeah.
And what you're looking at on this is the gamble. That's what you have to tell yourself is if you believe in those 10 games and you believe in that system and you see it in pre-season that it looks like it, and you see Salah bang in, these are kind of the numbers that you're going to expect of him. 118 minutes per XG. I'm really concerned about taking that on. And I'm really excited about the potential opportunity that you could have a player like that, and not many people are going to own him. Yeah. I'm not closing the door. Yeah, I definitely think that's the case.
And Bournemouth, Villa, Wolves and West Ham in the first 6, all pre anything to do with Europe.
The big one is the big one's the Bournemouth in game week 2, isn't it? The big one is because it's
a captaincy. So in terms of how he compared against, I would say his peers on the pitch, but not so much his peers in FPL, because we're kind of comparing him to strikers here. So we've got a table showing the sub 200 club. We will talk about the 200 club in FPL, but this is the sub 200 club. And so this is mainly people, this is guys or strikers in particular, plus Salah, that had an XG of less than 200 minutes per XG, right?
Less than 200 minutes per XG. We talked about, like I say, the worst Salah did was game week 1 to 29, where he was like 185. But actually, it's quite a small list of people that get to 1 XG per 200 minutes. So there's only, from midfielders on this space, there's only Mo and Rashford that fit into this criteria. I know that most are looking around at the teams, and I've seen lots of teams with people like Mitoma, Son, Bruno, Saka, Odegaard, none of them make this list. To give a few selected ones that are not on here. We're talking way off it. We're talking nearer. So Saka's like 300 minutes per expected goal. And even Hakpo's gone up to a striker is on those lines of what you're looking at. Kevin De Bruyne's, they're over 400. Foden, Odegaard, those type of players. It's like really, really unusual to have players, certainly that would be classed as a midfielder, that would be nearer those numbers. They're not there. So the more you fill your options with players that are less than 200, the bigger chance you've got that you get through the first 2 game weeks with no goals.
I mean, did you go through the differences for the people listening of between game week 1 and 29? And I've just realised something, that we talked about Salah's first 29 game weeks being terrible. He's still in this list. He's still on the table.
This is what I'm saying.
He's still better than any other midfielder. It's mental. So yeah, XG every 119 minutes for the last 10 games and 185 minutes for the first 28.
Yeah, so for audio guy, I mean, Haaland just is absurd. 97 minutes per XG. Wilson, 108 minutes. Salah at the end was 119 minutes. So that tells you where he'd sort of sit in relationship to those. Mitro, I don't see a lot of people.
He got a bunch of penalties. I'm cool. I know he missed them all, but he got a bunch of penalties, didn't he?
He did. He did. Darwin, 142. I mean, he's on the radar. We just don't know if he can finish. We don't know if he can finish. And talking of that, we don't know if Jesus can finish either, because he's 149.
And then you got Tony that's banned.
You got Tony that's banned. Then you have Kane that's 159.
Yeah. And then you're back round to Salah. Salah overall, then Jota at 184. Yeah. So, I mean, I think again going back to that sample size thing, if you're confident in that 10-week sample, that 10-game sample, then we see something early from pre-season and whatever, then I mean, I don't think he's going to hurt you. He's not going to hurt you as much in this season again, because this Haaland locked captaincy thing is going to protect you. But it's an opportunity. It's almost like an early opportunity to make gains where people are going to be, spreading their funds a bit across other people.
And I think with it, what we have to remember is we're not picking 38 game weeks at the start.
No, 8 max.
8 max. And if he goes off,
and
scores 100 points like he did in like 8-9 game weeks before, and you've got him
at 25% owned, you're just going to be laughing.
I think there's so many good options this season that if you look at the ownerships that we're seeing already, nobody's producing bad teams. I feel like there's going to be a fan base that does really well in FPL this season, because you can easily double up on the best assets. You can easily do Haaland and KDB in a team. You can easily do Son and Kane in a team. You can easily do Rashford and Bruno in a team. You can easily do Salah and Hakpo and
we've not had that. We've not had that in the past. Not in the past like 3 or 4 years. If I think back to it
last
did happen.
Time is Salah and Kane. Son and Kane.
Son and Kane was the last time we had it, and then they just basically squashed that with 12 million each. And good luck, guys. But
we know it. We've experienced it because we were Spurs fans.
Yeah.
All our more casual friends
smashed it.
Well, smashed it. But it's like we couldn't catch them all season.
Yeah, exactly.
For it. So I do think that's going to happen this season, and I do think you're going to have to try and work through who am I going to place my bets on. It is a really big opportunity. I think a lot of people will spread their bets. I think a lot of people will have one from each and all of those ones. And I think people will hope that, say, Trent can cover Salah or one of the midfielders or some can. But I just, I thought this was a good opportunity for us to sit and look at it and go, how good is Mo Salah? Even at his worst, he's still better than most.
Exactly. And I think we point towards like his talismanic nature as well. And we've got something to show For City, Arsenal, United, and Liverpool, this is the share of non-penalty XG. This is from an account called Football NL, so at FTBLNL. So go check that out. Go check the graphics out for that. And we've cut a couple of teams out of here, but we wanted to show, firstly, obviously, you know, with City, obviously Haaland is a huge talisman. That's why we pick him, etc. It's a little bit more spread between Arsenal and United. I mean, the different shares there. So Jesus, 19%, Odegaard, 14%, Martinelli, 13%, Saka, 13%. You know, kind of spread across those guys. Not so much. It's a bit better for United in Rashford, 23%, Bruno, 12%, and Anthony, 10%, Martial, 8%. But when you look at the Liverpool one and you compare it as well to the previous seasons, you look at Salah here at 26% of, you know, all of Liverpool's non-penalty XG. And you know that he's on penalties, unlike Rashford. You know that unlike Jesus, for example.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to like all the other seasons where he's been, you know, excellent, this is his second highest share of non-penalty XG since he's been at Liverpool. And you know,
and it's consistent.
It's consistent. So, you know, 17-18 was 31.4%. I mean, it was an absolute monster. But you got to remember that the people sharing his XG in the top 8 there were people like Dom Solanke, Daniel Sturridge, and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, right? And he's now sharing it with Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, Diogo Jota, right? So it's a slightly higher level now as well. But, you know, 31.4% in 17-18, 25.7 the following year, 25.3 the year after that, 22.7, 21.1. So we see it drop off, but then 26.3. And I think the two seasons before, mainly as well, because Mane was there, right? And like Mane was very much another focal point of that Liverpool attack. So that's and fair.
Bobby at times you was established, wasn't he, a bit more, but Bobby, yeah, Mane definitely would have had a being. But I mean, if we did this 30-38. So in game weeks 30-38, he was 28%, and before that, it was 27%. So it just tells you he will continually take a quarter of Liverpool's XG, which means if they have a 2 XG team, which it looks like they are again, he's going to get half an XG every game. And if they're more than that, he's going to get more than that. And that's non-pen XG. And if he keeps pen, so even if he loses pens, he's still going to have plenty of what we're seeing. I think people are really worried about it, but you're like, well, he missed 2, and I think he scored 1 or 2. He scored 2 down the middle, didn't he?
He'll still have them.
I think he still has them, mate. I genuinely do. But he just continually knocks it in. You know, as I said, 160 minutes per total XG. I'll give some exact numbers so for people that are there, because I said some round numbers earlier, but Saka is 277, Hakpo 283, Son 286, Matoma 287, Martinelli 298, Odegaard 310, Sterling 320, Foden 318. You know, these guys, Bruno 355. Like, he's still there's still a reason why he's 12.5 million. And I think we should just keep remembering it and telling ourselves it and be open. Even if we'll share our first draft in a few days' time, and I guarantee you probably won't be in it.
Yeah, probably. Probably. But we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. So, you know, we've gone through a bunch of stuff there. We've sort of gone through the bad sides of the underlying data, obviously the good sides of the most recent underlying data as well. So I guess it's now up to everyone else to see whether that information sits well with you and you can draw your own conclusions. But I think from our side of things, do we think Salah's on a decline?
Nah.
No, he's not. And just be fearful. Maybe not fearful, because, you know, we're all protected by EO and whatever, but just be aware that he will score points this season. He will score a lot of points. He will score a lot of goals, and you're not going to have him when he does. For most of it. Maybe not.
If people like this content in terms of looking at a player and doing a bit more of work on that, it's something we don't normally do that often. Let us know in the comments. Tell us what you want. Tell us other players you'd like us to look at, spend some time on. Happy to do so.
Sounds good. Well, for now, we'll leave you, but I'll speak to you later, mate.
See you in a few days.
Cheers, mate.